If you guys are talking, I don't think that the sound is working.
Hi, Kim, can you hear us?
Yeah, now I can.
Oh, great.
All right.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you too.
Do we want to meet for, well, we're saving meeting you for 5:40, so we'll just skip that you're here right now and go to public comments. Do we have any public comments at this time? All right. Moving along to the minutes. Making up time.
Yeah.
I'm struggling to pull them up, but my name is spelled wrong again. But that's okay, it's not your fault, Dave, because it's wrong on the website.
Oh, okay, well, we make it.
Yeah,
That is our fault.
That's, but it was wrong before, so.
It's not Dave's
But it's
not
funny
Jake's
because
fault.
it's not on this minute of your, it would be great if it was on the spelling of your name.
Oh, that's
being
true.
wrong Under. Somebody.
Dean Jensen pointed out the misspelling of somebody else's name.
But this time.
Okay, that's funny, there's name spelling, it looked like.
Yes, it-
one and two, but a different name. Okay, Jean, I will note that.
Jean is right, Jensen is wrong.
Jensen is wrong. Gens.
Jensen.
Okay.
No reason.
I'll scroll down a little bit, folks, if you're looking on your own computer, or you can look up on the big screen. Oh, there was a note here from the person who transcribed last time that there was a Catamount Outdoor Family Center person present last time, but the name is not recorded.
Alan, right?
Alan Cote,
Spell that one.
COTE. Or,
Okay.
yeah.
Correct that as well. I'll be taking over the minutes, of course. Do you like the density of information in these minutes? Do you find them too much information? Do you like a little more simplicity? Any comments on that? Right.
Well, this is better than they were, but they used to be like run for pages.
Okay.
So,
All right,
I
good to know.
Right, and then I felt like last month's was a little too
well, that's-
abbreviated,
you know.
so I like. this
Okay, so
amount.
this is a good model. All right, I'll keep that.
It's just right.
The Goldilocks.
Perfect.
That's the rules.
Okay. Keep rolling. It's big. Page right there.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. If I can, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor of approving the minutes from March? Please say aye, raise your hand. And, okay, great.
But I did say that Jean was spelled right, but adjournment is spelled wrong, so. So you're not getting two places. We don't have to change it.
Oh my goodness, okay.
All right. Jeez.
Can we
We're just
just-
testing you.
Can we just say JJ?
And most other people do.
I'm gonna abstain because I wasn't here last month.
Thanks. All right, I think we are on to meeting our new conservation planner.
Yeah.
Who are you?
Let's stop the share so we can see people online. It's a pleasure to meet you all. I'm the new conservation planner for Williston and really excited to be here. And I figured it might be a great way to start just to take 10 minutes. I know we've got a pretty busy agenda, but maybe do a round of introductions. And I can start by telling you a little bit about myself. I am a local Williston resident, so I'm really excited to be here. I live just down the road in Sunrise Drive neighborhood. So I can actually walk to Catamount if I take a very creative way in the Talcott Woods. I haven't done it yet, but I have done.
It's not really creative.
Back there.
Technically, we can all walk to Catamount.
Yeah.
That
That's
is
true.
very true. Let the record state, we can all walk. Prior to this, I was a conservation planning specialist with Vermont Fish and Wildlife in the Community Wildlife Program. If you've ever met Jens Hilke, who directs that program, I worked very closely with Jens. And through that work, did a lot of work with conservation commissions. And I also recently completed a master's degree at the University of Vermont through their field naturalist program. And for my master's work in that program, I consulted for a year with Stowe Land Trust. And that project was really based at the intersection of ecology and recreation. So I worked out on a parcel called the Adams Camp parcel out in Stowe, which is under the ownership of Trapp Family Lodge, conserved by Stowe Land Trust and the town of Stowe. And it was a great example of a project that I think is very much like Catamount in that it's a parcel about 500 acres where you've got a lot of different interests, recreation, skiing, hiking, mountain biking, ecology, a lot of different wildlife interests going on there, public access, preserved in the easement, and town involvement. So it was a project that I really enjoyed working on because I got to meet and work with all the different stakeholders, get everyone together in one room and try to figure out where there were areas that everybody agreed, where there was conflict, and how we could use that conflict generatively to come up with decisions and figure out how to all move forward in a way that made compromises that were going to work for the group. So that's just a little bit about me. I don't want to take too much time, but I'd love to hear a little bit about each of you if we have the time for it.
Sure. I'll go next. My name is Drew Crandall. I also live in Williston here. I've been living here for about 12 years, grew up in Vermont. Have a background in international conservation, which I'm not actively working in right now. But I have been coming to Catamount since I was a kid and currently volunteer with the Nest Watch program and like to participate in the invasive species pulling events. And yeah, happy to meet you. Welcome aboard.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Carl Rhymes. I'm a former member of the Conservation Commission. I'm not on the committee, but I'm here tonight because I believe on your agenda will be a discussion about the mowing contract for the fields, and I've been involved with the program that monitors grassland bird nesting on the fields, and so I'm here to hope we get the contract so that it best enhances that activity.
Thanks for coming, Carl.
John Atkinson, I'm the executive director of the Catamount Outdoor Family Center. I've been involved in outdoor recreation and education for the last 35 years or so, primarily in the Mad River Valley, but deeply involved in Vermont Mountain Bike Association and from day one. I'm actually surprised I haven't met you yet. It always feels like it's a small state and even smaller because we all work together. I've been at Catamount since August of 2022. Yes.
The
So long,
lost
right?
years.
Really excited to be here. It's a great place to work and to learn, and I have really enjoyed my time and all the folks that are part of it. So
Awesome.
My name is Amanda Preston. I'm the operations and event manager at Catamount. I like to think that John's kind of big picture and I'm day to day. It's a short way to explain that. My background is also in environmental education and recreation. I've been involved for about 15 years now. Fish and Wildlife offers a conservation camp program, and I was camper junior counselor through to director. So very fond place in my heart for that camp program. I was also a state park interpreter for Forest Parks and Rec, so I've been involved with ANR for quite a while. And then got an email from the Vermont Mountain Bike Association that Catamount was hiring and jumped ship and went over there. So I've been with Catamount going on my 4th year now.
Awesome.
I'm Danielle Doucette. I am the chair this year of this committee, and I'm also the representative from the Parks and Rec committee in town, and that I've been I don't know, it's been a while. I didn't write the plan, but I feel like I came in right after the plan was made, so, yeah, and I work in town at the library and I worked at the schools and have a son who's a counselor at the Door Family Center. So just kind of, excited to be here. But sadly I have to leave early tonight, so I will be skedaddling at 6:45 for my daughter's musical. Yeah, I think it's right.
I've optimistically put in that we'll end right at 6:45.
Yes.
If you don't, we can carry on.
I'm Jean Jensen. Lots of E's in it. I'm the representative from the select board. I'm a 30-year resident of Williston. I am not a natural outdoorsy person. But I'm interested in all the finances and the legal and how it interacts with the operations of the town primarily.
My name's Hans Bueller. I'm a 23-year Williston resident from Pennsylvania originally. And I'm also the Outdoor Family Center board president, currently going on a few terms. I joined the board in 2017 then, and I think I've been on this committee the longest of anyone.
I
as
think you're
well.
right, yep.
So I like Catamount. I go there most every day. There's not mud. Yeah, just anything outdoorsy is interesting to me. And I like to volunteer, trail work and things like that too. So, oh, and I'm engineer by training, but I do operations, so I'm into spreadsheets and financials, and I feel like that's one of the roles I can serve with my family center.
Yeah, you better jump in.
Oh yeah, that's my child.
He's a dad. His dad also has
Oh
kids
yeah,
that work at the outdoor center, family center,
yes.
and maybe another one someday soon.
Luke's in camps Ezra's in camps this summer, and yeah, Luke, my junior's counselor. And Betty, I'm proud that I caused the budget reduction that caused her to be laid off. So when she called me and said, "Dad, I got fired," I'm like, "Yeah, I know."
Matt Boulanger, planning director, really thrilled to have David on board with us. It's been great already, and it's only been a week and change, feels like,
We can change.
but we're moving through the big to-do list of conservation plan tasks rapidly, and it's great to do that. And yeah,
Yeah, Kim, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sorry, I was unmuting. Hey folks, I'm Kim Coleman. I'm the representative from the Wilson Conservation Commission. I'm not sure how long I've been on Conservation Commission, but I'm sad that I'm not there to see you in person, Carl. Carl and I served on Conservation Commission together for many years before he retired from the role. I also, in my day job, faculty at the University of Vermont in the Rubenstein School, and I'm the director of the Parks, Rec, and Tourism program in the Rubenstein School, and I'm not there in person tonight, nor will I be for the next few months because I'm on Fulbright to British Columbia. So I'll be joining remotely, but I look forward to meeting you when I'm back in person in late June.
And we're also joined by Max Dipple. Max, if you are there, if you want to say hi.
Hey, how's everyone doing? I'm just a local Williston resident and a college student. I have a journalism class I have an assignment on covering a committee meeting, but I chose you guys because I have frequented Catamount as a kid, and yeah, I'm just gonna be listening in and covering this meeting.
That's awesome. Thanks, Max.
Thanks.
Great.
Woohoo, all right, let's move on to Catamount Outdoor Family Center update. We're gonna try to put you at the beginning, closer to the beginning for the agenda, if we can remember to keep it there. Should you want to give your blast and then you we don't need to go. We're gonna try to.
Okay.
So we've
Well,
had-
I think
And
it's-
you also have stuff that always seems to be applicable that we then mentioned, so we're like, let's get this out of the way and talk about things we're gonna ask questions about.
I like the.
So we're gonna put you there.
reorganization. It's been another busy month for us, primarily with planning as the snow has melted and the mud has also melted. We are currently closed for spring mud season. We are also sitting in the hub most days, if not all days of the week, trying to keep people off the trails and explain why. It is challenging. Most, the people who don't care, and they ignore us. They will ignore the signs. They will go do what they want. I caught somebody last week who said, "Oh yeah, I saw they were closed. I just went anyways." And I'm just walking. That's a common one. We also have a couple local tween bikers who've been moving our fencing, which we closed off the jump lines and the dual slalom so that they could ride it. They've been out with shovels and moving wooden features. So we have some challenges with some of our users. We are doing our best to address them directly and then we're also adjusting signage and communications, but this is something that I've had experience with for every spring that I've ever been involved with trails. But it's also frustrating to have folks who are either not aware, that's what I'm gonna put the 12-year-olds in that category. And the older folks who read the sign and just kept going anyways, as folks who feel entitled. It is. We are meant to be stewards of the land and the trails. We try not to be the police. So we're trying to balance, we'll walk that balanced line there. We do plan to reopen some trails, potentially this weekend, if not definitely next week. We typically open with our Sandman's Loop and the Goose Hill trails, which tend to be drier and hardened. So that's where we'll start. And then if we do open this weekend, it'll be quiet. And if we do decide to open, if we get through the weekend and everything's good, then we will start promoting that we're open again and talking about which trails will be open. We are currently working on Act 250 permitting for the trail project. That has moved forward. We have engaged with all of our partners in the Agency of Natural Resources. So we have, we're scheduling walks with the wildlife biologists, forestry folks, the soils folks, wetlands, stormwater, and we have engaged with Bowman, which is our partner for the building planning, but they are now also doing our stormwater work for the trails. That is something that we're required to do by the state. We need a professional engineer to do that work. It's gonna cost us $10,000 just for that piece of it. We also are engaged with Bowman for our wetlands work. And that is several $1,000s too, for them to do the delineations that we need and the work that we are planning in the wetlands areas where the trails already exist.
Remind me, John, is this for the whole trail plan or is this like a phase one? I can't remember.
This is for the whole thing.
Okay.
So the cost that we're talking about should be a one-time cost.
Good.
But we are currently estimating 60 to 70,000 just for the permits for the trails, not for the building.
Yeah.
So the building will be probably a similar number.
Mhm.
And this is all money that we are, have to raise. We're scheduling those meetings, those site visits, the permitting stuff that we have to do. We also have to pay for an archaeological review. That's another piece of this, and there was one in 2021, which I'm happy to share. I think I shared with everybody, so you can read what that one says. So a lot of moving parts, a lot of information to share in a way that they all want it. Our mapping stuff is we've we have a volunteer who works at UVM, Keith Jennings, who is a data and GIS specialist, also with great background in drainage. So he's going to understand what we're talking about when we're dealing with those things. And we also have we've started with 2 interns from UVM. We've been trying to get interns for a while. I think that the outdoor center is a great place for education, and that this is a partnership that makes sense for us to pursue. The board has allowed us to do this as an experiment, and if it does work out, we will continue to do it. So we do have one of our interns who's working on a mapping project, and will be helping us with our shape files and all that. So lots of circles that are connecting. And,
Yeah.
Are they coming from Kim's program? Or what
um,
program are they in?
they are in the recreation program. So I went and did a talk to some of the students with Professor David Kaufman. What's his title, Kim?
He's a lecturer in Parks, Rec, and Tourism, so he teaches ski resort management, which happens over the winter and spring and is an intensive. He was teaching the big class that I think you came into, but because he's retiring, I'm teaching it this fall while we onboard 2 new people. I can't remember. He teaches 4 classes: entrepreneurship and maybe resort marketing. All of the PRT students have to take an internship, like they have to do an internship. So it is a good program to be connected with. And I think like there's a lot of potential for us to send people to you. So yeah, offline we can talk about that. But yeah, Dave, I think you went into the big, where there were like 100 students in the class. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the big intro Parks, Rec, and Tourism class.
We've been trying to get interns, and this seemed to be the way that it really worked. So we're excited. We keep getting folks who are interested, but we have a limit of what we can do at any one time. But to continue, one of the outstanding things that we're hoping to clarify is whether the town might be the one to own the Act 250 permit, and then therefore some of the costs would be less because the town does not pay Act 250 fees. Wetlands and stormwater, everybody pays, so we would not gain any benefit from doing that, but there would be significant benefit if the town was the one to be the owner of the Act 250 permit. We are currently experiencing some very challenging insurance issues because of the request by the town to increase our coverages. And at the same time, we asked for coverage for a gravel ride, which kicked off a review with our current insurance agent or our insurance company. They have declined to cover the gravel ride. They said we could go out and get additional coverage, which we did. Then they declined to cover our weekly races.
Oh, no.
And several other things. They were surprised that we had been holding races for the last 35 years. So it's a very frustrating situation for us right now. We are in the process of engaging with a new insurance company because this one does not feel like they want to work with us any much longer. And that has, many ripple effects for us. We have asked that the town delay the implementation of those higher coverages, because if that is possible, we can still do our race series this summer. If that is not possible, we will have to not do that, and we will have to not do the gravel ride. And we will likely we will still have to change insurance agents in the near future too. We feel this one is going to likely drop us. Despite knowing exactly who we are and what we've been doing for the last many years, they have become non-communicative, though. They do not respond to our requests, and they will not give us a quote for the increased coverage either. regardless of how we propose it. We said, we won't do any of these things. We won't do the gravel run. We won't do the bike races. Can you give us a quote? And they're like, nope. So, and it's not even a no, it's just, there's no answer. So, it's a tough situation for us right now. And so, I have another phone call over there to clarify. He had talked to them earlier this week and explained where we were. And he was gonna see what the town's, lawyers and insurance, was comfortable with. So that one is hanging over us. We also are still, discussing the building ownership structure with the town and how that, our new building would be owned. And again, as a reminder, we can't really do any fundraising or applying for grants until we know what that ownership structure is. And then our final thing that's sort of hanging over us is the Vigno easement. And that's one of our joiners who owns a piece of trail or a few pieces of trail that they have offered the easement, and we need to pursue it and make it happen.
What did you call it? The Vigno?
Yes,
It's your last name. Yeah.
Grady and Jane, do you know them? Grady was our trail manager prior to Andy,
I did not.
and they live just down the street next
You
to
know,
the
Paige
pages.
Stowe, probably, right?
Fun fact, I
SCP.
actually went to college with Grady. I did not know, I knew Jane, but Grady and I overlapped just 1 year apart. And yeah, but come to discover, we lived, around Governor Chittenden Road from each other in Williston. So I did meet Grady, yeah, we interacted out at Adams Camp,
Yeah.
He's great.
So that's the easement that was on the north or south side of the. The
North side.
Nice.
Cabin Run entrance.
Cabin Run, okay. I know.
So they own a good chunk of Cabin Run, Gravy Train, which is Grady Train.
Oh,
And then the Pops Drop area, so the big rock roll downs. Just above.
Your favorite there.
Cabin Run is.
I know. So is that, and the easement is that's another thing that we just need to add a bullet item for, I think. You already said, they said they're willing to.
They have said that they're happy to do it, but the
Wait,
town has to do the paperwork and all the background stuff.
okay,
But I mean, it's imperative that we do this because it's a key access for the forest, and easements are really, really, really hard to get. You need permission for, so when you have one, pursue it. Yeah.
I think that's something that I can plug in on immediately and do my part to help move that along.
Yeah, we've already talked, the town would make sense as the easement holder, and we've talked about looking at our sort of most recent easements and how they work and function, and reaching out to town council and basically preparing the documentation. The idea is that the easement giver doesn't really need to do anything but sign at the end. So Dave's on.
And is the ownership of the building issue, is that on Eric's radar too, or are we?
As far as what that form of ownership would
Yeah.
look like, yes, we discussed it at the Family Center quarterly meeting. It's essentially a form of ground lease, and then there's sort of other terms and other issues around that about what's the license agreement going to need to look like. Sort of to secure all of that. So as that moves forward and gets more detailed, there's a sort of more of a family center to town manager's office conversation around how that works, but council's aware of that too and has given us some preliminary advice on it.
Does that go to the select board before we kind of can get the outdoor family center tucked in, knowing what it looks like, or what's sort of the current, like the end point for that?
Well, the ultimate endpoint, you're right, it's a real estate transaction, so it definitely goes to the select board.
So you gotta be nice to me.
Well, at the point of wanting to secure the lease, but before But before that, I guess like some amount of like certainty of what the lease and the payments are gonna be.
We'd be working on that at the
Uh-huh.
staff level and, coming up with a recommendation,
Okay.
yeah. There might be an interim point where there's, a discussion between the manager and the select board about what some of those terms might look like, and the one thing I'll just call out is, this is one of the ways. One of the matters for which the select board can go into an executive session is to talk about a real estate transaction. So that might happen not on a regular select board agenda.
Okay.
But Eric's aware of that conversation needing to move forward and would manage that.
I mean, town library sits on the school's property, so it's not an unheard of
No,
thing. We know how to do it.
There's a little difference between us and the school and the library though.
Insurance.
That's one of them. That's one of them.
Yeah, Eric mentioned that there were some differences.
Yeah.
Can I just ask if there's anything more we can do to stop people from coming up to the trails when it's closed? Can we reach out to people before they get in their cars and drive up there and then are frustrated that they can't? Can we put something in on Front Porch Forum or in the Observer? Is there some other way that we can?
I asked Dave to talk with John and Amanda a little bit about what might be effective. There's no reason we can't coordinate on some public outreach around that. And certainly like we do with any other country park, you know, we go up and put up timely signage when we're having issues. And maybe if somebody hears it coming from the town, coming from the conservation planner, maybe if they see a sign with the town of Williston logo on it, that might get us a little bit of traction.
But even before people get in their cars, if we can
Yeah.
get to them, because that's when they get up there and they look at the sign and maybe they say, well,
Doesn't
I drove
that
all the
way.
way up here.
I mean, we can post on Front Porch Forum like anybody, whether people read it or not is, you know, as good as it is.
Do the other town parks get closed for mud season?
No,
I don't know if it was for the eclipse, but there was some town communication that went out
yes,
somewhere that was like, yo, all town park, something, something. Like, I think that would be nice. Like, if we're saying that trails are too muddy at Catamount, do you think they're muddy at Mud Pond? I mean, probably, right? I
they're
don't know.
muddy at Mud Pond in the middle of August when it hasn't rained for 3 weeks.
So like Fellowship of the Wheel typically closes those trails.
Right,
But it's not official, correct?
correct.
Okay.
They you know, they ask their users and they do it, you know, when the grooming's not stable, and they do it when it's mud season, and they say, hey, cut it out, like, let it dry, please. But we've typically, with the town trails, just kind of, you know, hoped that common sense for the most part prevails, but we know, you know, we just get heavy use, right? Because people are going, it's mud season, trails at higher elevations are still really wet, I wanna go walk the dog, and it's just something we kind of live with. So we know our trails get, you know, more use, and then we just try to manage for it. But we can close trails if we need to, we can close areas if we need to. It's just been very infrequent that we do that.
We can work on this, you know, as you suggested a little more ourselves, but Dan, I think it's a great idea. You know, I'd say there certainly are people who would maybe perk up and listen a little bit if the town, you know, posted officially, but then there's a whole nother group of people that would listen more to the community and, you know, their
Right.
community of peers. And there's plenty of people that would look at what the town says and just do what they want to do anyways. I mean, we have people walking across the broken Allen Bridge day and night, so. But I think perhaps a multi-pronged approach, you know, a couple different strategies might eventually yield something.
But we're kind of wrapping up for this year, right?
Well, I mean, we're gonna open, but we're gonna open small pieces
Yeah.
because it's not, you know, the vast majority of the trails are not ready yet. It's the trails that are hardened and or sandy. So it's, you know, we're opening the things that we can at this point. And the issues that we identified, you know, are they're not gonna go away for another month or two. And who knows, I mean, you could have another fun summer of rain.
I like the lake level being high. I don't like the rain though.
I'm just letting people know that my laptop suddenly said, the University of Vermont requires a restart in
Oh,
5 minutes. So I'm gonna disappear and come back.
Okay.
All right, so our upcoming events, looks like there's a few things happening in May.
So I'll say, so two of these are sort of invitations for the Catamount Community Forest Committee. You know, it's really up to you whether you'd like to participate. The first is an invitation from Catamount Outdoor Family Center to participate in the spring launch day on May 11th at Catamount. And the second is a general invitation from the town to participate in the town fair out and on the green on May 3rd, which is Green Up Day. So, yeah, nothing's required.
All right.
Nothing's required. You know, Catamount Outdoor Family Center is gonna have a presence on both of those events, and you have it seems like a bunch of great ideas for engaging people with you know, recreation, but also, you know, it looks like some naturalism stuff and a whole mix of activities. I will say that Brandon Benedict, the new county forester, is gonna be doing a walk at the spring launch, which I think is really great. From 12 to 1:45, and I know there's folks who are interested in meeting Brandon on this committee, so it might be a great opportunity for that. And while you're there, maybe some people will be interested in tabling, but I'll just put that out there. Maybe start with those two items.
We just need like a little sticker that says, I'm on the committee, ask me questions as I'm walking around instead of sitting at a table.
I'm gonna be out of town on the 3rd, but the 11th, definitely like to participate in that.
Yeah, that's great.
I think if anyone wants to come just on their own accord, that would be great. I think it is also a great opportunity to clarify and differentiate kind of who each of us are in the same place at the same time. A lot of people get really confused and maybe only see us as the Catamount Community Forest, or maybe only see us as the Outdoor Family Center. But to welcome people back to the trails, we're open, here's who we are, here's who you are, we work together to manage this place. I think that would be a good opportunity.
We don't have any, I mean, tabling usually has brochures and things, a banner. I don't think we have any of those things.
Does this committee
A
need
t-shirt.
brochure?
We don't, but we
T-shirt.
make brochures and banners like nobody's business, and we've got a tent and a table, so,
We
you
do
know.
need broken.
I think I'm already committed to 2 tables, so.
It
You need
is
3 hats, but
on Mother's Day, and we are doing 3-day memberships and 1-hour demos for any of our moms, so.
what's the time on the 11th? And I guess the 3rd.
12 to 4 for the 11th.
How would Catamount Outdoor Family Center feel about having a committee member kind of pop up at one of your booths? Piggyback on what kind of you already have planned.
That's fine.
So
I'm sorry, I'm
maybe,
speaking out of turn.
so maybe that takes a little bit of pressure off trying to put together your own table. Maybe kind of start small. Maybe pick just one event and see if you can have somebody's staff. I like the idea of even something that says, you know, we're the Catamount Community Forest Committee, like ask us questions and just being there to participate with folks from the Outdoor Family Center. As you're suggesting to kind of clarify, yeah, we're different, but we're together, we're a team.
I will share too, I think 3 years ago, Terry came to this party and had some sign up sheets for like invasive volunteer days and bird nest watching. I don't know if we're at the point to have that ready for this year, but I think that's a great opportunity for future events.
Yeah.
Well, that's after our next meeting, right? We're meeting on May 8th. So we might.
Yes, yeah, that's true. Yeah, so
Yeah,
you
too.
could do some planning. You could definitely reserve some time to plan. If you want to do the spring launch event.
As Drew just said, Drew's available. I don't know if I'm available or not.
It is Mother's Day,
is-
so I'm gonna hedge a little bit on it.
Yeah.
I think I can make time.
Well, the idea of being able to pop in too is.
3
Good
bites
start.
for mom.
Yeah, true. You wouldn't, I guess, necessarily need someone to be there from 12 to 4. and you'll be there, but you said you wearing a different hat.
Yeah, I can like switch hats.
Yeah.
Like, I'll put it there, I guess.
Okay, well, perhaps that's what we'll do then, maybe. Trying to do both events on, short notice is a lot, so maybe. We'll put it on the agenda for May 8th to do some planning.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
And I think it can be simple, like, I like the joint table approach, and then as long as, there's some. Planned, ask us about the difference between CCF and CFC, like, it gives something to talk about. If you're two separate tables, then it feels more awkward, like, wait, what? But at one table together, there's less overhead to get the committee to the outdoor family center event. And then, we can kind of play it by ear a little bit more that way. But it would be good to have something. Like, if you're a CCF member standing there at the table, it'd be good to have something.
That
Physical,
shows you're not in
yeah.
front of the outdoor,
Yeah.
you're not wearing your Catamount
Right,
or your
you're
family
not
center
some other
shirt. You
person
can-
standing there.
Matt and I can talk about that too, there might be
Yeah.
some materials we can put together, print or something.
Just hand out management plans, license agreements. There you go. Yeah, good license agreements. Staff the first 10 customers. Really dig in.
You guys know how to bring fun.
We're all about fun here in the town. We sure are.
For the May 3rd event, I will be there with Catamount's table, and I'm not planning that event, so I don't feel like I have the wherewithal to say you can join us, but you can join us if that's okay with whoever's organizing.
No, it's terrific to have people. We'll be there mostly on behalf of the town talking about the comprehensive plan, just because that's been our big project and trying to encourage people to, read the hearing draft and that sort of thing. But we'll be talking about all things town because that's what people want to do once they find out who we are.
I could try to be there, it was like pencil me in May 3rd,
Yeah.
or some of it. And the date, the library bird block, do we need to confirm that date?
Oh, yeah, so I put that on there just because in the minutes, it was said to be on the 30th of May, and on the spreadsheets listed as the 31st, so let me bring that up.
I'm also thinking about the 11th. Would it be worthwhile to have maybe one of the UVM students there to just sort of explain what they're doing, because they certainly have a very overt presence. Just thought,
Somebody
I don't know.
associated with the research, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
They have a very limited amount of time, that we are paying them for. So I don't know whether we.
But I think she's talking
No, I
about
meant with the
research, the
students.
students doing the research.
Yeah.
Oh, different, okay.
Yeah.
No.
Are you referring to the forestry research?
I think one of Tony's students.
Yes.
I can connect with Tony, see if he has a student who might be interested in speaking about it. Or joining on the forestry walk, I'm sure, Brandon might be talking about some of that.
That's what he is probably gonna focus on, I think.
Okay. So I just put this on here, this spreadsheet was put together before my tenure began, but, Matt and I were talking, perhaps this can be a running line item each meeting where we bring up the spreadsheet for a quick check-in, make sure we're all on the same page with any events that have been proposed. I'm aware that there's been conversation that there's still some discussions that need to be had around events and what qualifies as a town event and some of that stuff. So we'll definitely have time to work that out at a separate point, but at least for today, since we're trying to keep a pretty tight ship on time. Does anyone have any questions about these 3 events that are listed? Looks like North Branch Nature Center, Green Mountain Audubon Society, and a Williston Library Bird Walk, which if nobody knows the specific date, I
just
can
confirmed it, it's the Saturday, the 31st.
Okay, perfect. So that's great.
And just because this always bugs me. I don't think the library is a work event, but there's 3 tabs down there, so either combine all the tabs, I just
Yeah.
combining the tabs would be a lot easier.
I didn't even see that. Events.
Yeah, I'm not sure they need to be
I
separate,
don't
given
think
the
so.
amount of things we can just make it cause that was totally my confusion of putting them on the work tab, not realizing there were multiple
Right.
tabs when I plugged them in. And I probably promised I'd move them over and then
You
I
did, but
didn't.
that wasn't gonna mention it, but
I'll
since you
just-
did.
I did, I can admit when I promised to do something and I haven't done it
You're
yet.
busy, it's okay.
I'll share from my perspective as the event coordinator at Catamount. Part of my job and I believe obligation with our license agreement is to take what's put on this sheet on our event calendar. I don't have enough detail here to list something for the public, so as we fill out this sheet, I need to know if it's open to the public, if there's registration, how they find that, if there's any imagery you want on that listing, that kind of stuff.
That would be really good, cause one thing we're working on internally is what are we gonna call a town event? And part of it is there's gonna need to be a sponsoring department head sign off who says, yes, this is my department's event. Works with the manager's office to set that up and make sure that we're all clear about what it is the town's conducting out there. And one thing we could then internally ask is, okay, put that on your department's webpage somewhere, so provide a link. And Phil, we're trying to create an internal form of sort of the who, what, why, where, when of the event.
Mhm.
So then we could share that with you, or we could get it into the table. But I'd love to have every one of these have a link and say, yeah, get it on the website. What is it? And make sure that we're clear about that. So we can work on refining that.
Yeah, that sounds good. And we'll communicate about how we can make this easier for you as well.
Yep.
Okay, so let's, I'm just noting that I knew I set an ambitious time. It's now 6:18, so Carl's been kind enough to attend tonight to talk about the mowing schedule. Do you think it's a good time to jump to that? Carl, do you want me to do a little introduction or would you like to talk about
Why
that?
don't you go ahead and start? I'll be here for questions or elaborate.
Okay, so actually, let me, yeah, okay, so I'll start with, share. Quick map of Catamount. So Carl and I met a couple days ago. Carl was kind enough to introduce me to all the work that's gone on at Catamount for multiple decades, monitoring the bobolinks that nest there yearly. So this is the southern parcel right here, and there are 3 fields that have been hayed and mowed by a local farmer for a number of years, and that lease was last renewed in 2022, and it expires, or it's up for renewal in May of this year, so very soon. And these aren't labeled, but there's field A, field B, and this field right here, just past the pond at the edge of the property, is field C, and that is a field that has had language written into the lease agreement restricting when it can be mowed for the benefit of the grassland birds. So I spoke with Carl the other day, and Carl talked to me a little bit about what the folks who've been monitoring the site are hoping to ask for a change in the mowing schedule in the lease as it's up for renewal. And we wanted to bring that to your attention today, see if there were any concerns or questions. Carl came to answer any of those questions. So a quick sort of summary. So this is the bobolink project. This field is not enrolled in this project, but essentially with taking care of grassland birds, there are 2 recommended mowing strategies. One is to delay the first time that a field is cut and let it grow up through the spring and then cut it after July 15th. And the second strategy is what's called the delayed second cut. So a farmer, makes a cut early in the spring, usually late May. And then there's a 65-day window where the bobolinks, some of them that nest early might lose that nest, but they have ample time to re-nest if there's that 65-day window and successfully fledge. And so then if that window is successfully allowed, a second cut later at the end of the summer allows for successful nesting.
So this is like an either or then?
Well,
We were confused by the dates last time, with one being July 15th, one being July.
oh, yeah. So currently this field is managed under this second strategy. The bobolink project, says, hey, both of these can work.
Mhm.
There are some, they recommend, depending on the conditions and depending on the grassland birds you have, one strategy might be a little bit better than the other for the birds. And, this strategy, the delayed second cut, tends to be better for haying. But sometimes it's not as optimal for the birds. And so the group that's been monitoring bobolinks out there has requested, and I'll show you the specific language there, but they're requesting that this essentially be moved to the first strategy, the delayed first cut, where the field will be left through the spring to grow up until after successful nesting and then cut after that. So
Does our farmer do 2 cuts?
probably want to.
Does he do
Does
what?
he do 2 cuts now?
Oh, yeah, he does at least 2 cuts, two or more.
Depending
Sometimes
on
three
how much
cuts.
rain and when it falls.
That's what I
Yeah,
was thinking,
right.
you can't even walk in the,
Kind of weather dependent.
yeah.
They don't mow until things are open, but
Yeah.
yeah, it isn't subject to our review at all.
So Carl mentioned that it is slightly weather dependent, so some years they don't get that first cut in if it's pretty wet out there, it's hard to get the equipment out there. And some years we'll do both cuts with that break in the middle. And most years the birds, there's successfully fledged chicks. It sounds like I was reading your report, there was one year where they didn't have any success, but
Right.
but most years they have success. So here's the specific request. Right here at the top, you can see this is line 12 in the current lease agreement. This is the exact language as it currently is. To support grassland bird habitat, management of field C shall adhere to the following schedule. First cut and fertilization must occur before May 20th, if weather allows, and subsequent cut fertilization must occur after August 1st. So those dates are slightly different than what I showed you on the Bobolink project website, but it's that same strategy. Mowing the field C is not permitted in that middle window to allow the birds to nest. And the proposed change is to switch to a version of that first strategy. So the proposed language to support grassland bird habitat, management of field C shall adhere to the following schedule. Mowing of field C is not permitted before July 24th. First cut and fertilization must occur between July 24th and August 15th, weather permitting. Subsequent cuts may occur during the rest of the calendar year. So are there any questions? Are there any concerns about this request to the committee?
I mean, I have 2 thoughts. One, we should ideally maximize the success of the bobolinks. Or if I said it right, bobolinks.
Bobolinks.
I've heard both. Yeah, Collins. Thank you, Carl.
I don't go around saying names of birds frequently. I just look at the signs as I ride past on that field. Hey, look, there's a bobolink sign. Oh, actually, that's the name of one of our trails. We named our trail.
Well, if it's
so
a trail,
we
now he's
would-
gonna know how to say it.
We would wanna, yeah, right, we would wanna maximize the effect of make it best for the birds.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I don't have any idea, the other stakeholder, who's the person mowing it. Like how that affects them and do they do it for free today? And are they gonna be continuing to be willing to do it free? So, if it's less optimal for him, but we can still get him to do it for free. But it's still beneficial, but less optimal, then I think I would lean that way and say, let's make a change if it's better for the birds. As long as the farmer doesn't cancel on you, and then you're like, oh shoot, now what?
Yeah, well, he does it for free, but he gets the hay for free too.
Yeah.
So it would, as far as the farmer, I don't know how he would feel about that, if as far as he was concerned, it's a little bit less beneficial for him. Because he does not get the mowing on the early mowing on field C. He does get on the other 2 fields, he's not limited on those, just on field C where the birds breed.
Yeah.
And then what if he said no
And
to field C, then what happens to field C?
If he said no.
Yeah.
Then we gotta negotiate, and then it's not, I certainly wouldn't wanna cancel him out from mowing altogether to promote this new approach. And we could talk about dates with him and come to an agreeable date, and we could go back to do the early mowing. But I would, if we did do that, I would ask that we do it. I would put the date before May 20th, because the reason that we want to do this is that we've seen that if, when he usually gets out there to mow, it's between May 15th and 17th in that neck of the woods. And the bobolinks are already there, and they're already to start. They generally start nesting around June 1st, and the grass is just not grown up very high between when he mows May 15th, 17th, and June 1st. So the reason to do this is it will allow that grass to grow. That grass will be a little higher because it hasn't been cut. And it makes for more successful nesting because they're more protected in the higher grass.
Oh, thank you for pointing that out.
So
What's our lease agreement with the birds? Can we tell them to come sooner? Yeah.
Can I ask a question about that? So Carl, bobolink have really high site fidelity, right? So
do.
have you seen, so there's, I think like we can be pretty confident that their patterns will continue. Is that accurate?
I think so. This is a marginal field because it's as small as it's roughly 8 acres, and generally they like bigger fields, 10 acres and more. They do breed also on the adjacent field to the east on
That's owned by the Maloney's.
the River Hill Farm, but
Yeah.
we have no control over the mowing. And I gotta say, they're pretty good. The River Hill Farm people are pretty good in the sense that in the last 4 years, they have mowed late, and that's their choice and not anything that we have any influence over, but they have mowed late enough so that the birds have fledged by the time they mowed in July.
And can
But-
you just remind me the reason that we didn't enroll in the bobolink project when we conserved the property was to do with acreage, right?
Yeah, it's
Because
partially to
that
do
would
with the
pay the
acreage.
farmer the difference.
And the other thing is, I think that program is only open to private landowners. I don't think it's open to municipally loaned landowners. I may be wrong in that, but I'm pretty sure that that's the case.
Well, in this situation, the farmer is not paying for the property and he's just not gonna mow that field once, so he's not gonna get the hay for that field once,
Yeah.
so he's not out anything except the potential hay.
Yeah, right.
So he won't have to mow it
Yeah.
either, so,
Yeah,
I don't know, I think it's worth proposing the change, and if he's got a huge problem and we can't manage to negotiate it, that's, maybe has to come back here, but I'm
yeah.
for the birds.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, that's good.
Carl, how would you feel if we did propose it and the farmer was completely unwilling to budge, but said, you know, I really like this current arrangement, it's worked for the birds, but I don't want to change it all. How would you feel?
I would, before we got to that point, I would say, okay, you can do your first mowing, but you gotta do it not before May 20th, you gotta do it before May 15th.
May 15th, okay. All right, so some middle ground. That's good.
And that would give that grass a little chance to go higher before the birds try to nest.
My only other question is, I was looking at the bobolink project materials and they mentioned that the delayed first cut strategy is not recommended if there's a lot of invasive species presence in a field, because it can give time for something like poison parsnip to flower and propagate. And I haven't been out to that field yet, and I was wondering if there is invasive species presence out there.
Yes.
Pardon. Yeah, there is, but it's particularly along where field B is, and it's kind of along the edge between field B and the pond. That area is more so than over on field C.
Okay.
More it's good parsnip.
Yeah, that was my sense. The place that is not, that wouldn't be mowed doesn't have the poison parsnip yet, but it's nearby.
Yeah,
So like in a year or two, it might.
yeah.
But for now, I don't, that's my sense is it didn't.
Okay,
You know,
that's.
I- I think there's high potential for, I think that's a legitimate concern that we should think about of giving an opportunity for invasive spread in that area. I think poison parsnip is so aggressive that I think that's a legitimate thing for us to talk about.
Talk about now or talk about? Or just have an understanding that, I mean, if
Yeah,
we
we-
decided we had to back off from it, then we could, I don't think the farmer would say, no, I'm not gonna do the early mow.
How long's the lease? Is it 3 years?
For
Three
that one,
years.
it's 3 years. Traditionally, it's been 3 years.
So in 3 years from now, we have a chance to change it.
But all you're
Well-
doing, if we decide to back off, all you're doing is offering the opportunity to do
Yeah,
an early mow like he does on the other two fields.
Well, we have a conversation coming up about invasive management, and so the other strategy would be to say we're looking at changing this mowing schedule, and that should inform how we manage invasives, given that like this area is going to be disturbed at sort of like a critical time in the calendar, et cetera. You know, do you know what I mean? Like it could go the other way where we like make the decision and then we think about invasive management in light of the decision.
So I would miss that, do we wait and not? But like, so when do you need to sign this lease agreement? Like May is coming pretty quick and you gotta tell the guy what to do.
Yeah,
yeah.
Matt, thoughts on that?
so I think we would, between this meeting and your next one, we need to speak with Mr. DeGraff about, you know, would this be amenable and make some decisions?
Yeah, the contract ends on May 1st,
Yeah,
and so you'd like to have a new contract.
Before the next meeting.
yep. So I think with the guidance from this group, we would do the best we can. If there's just like an outright no, that we just might have to say, well, you know, we're gonna have to delay that and talk to this group again. It may push things back, but
Yeah.
you know, there's no lease in time for there to be mowing this spring, as I understand it. So if he would like to mow, he needs to get a new lease from us.
Well, if his current lease's first cut must occur before May 20th,
We might want to push that to be.
he could show up on April.
He doesn't have a lease right now. He can't mow at all.
Oh, it expired? It expires May
Expires May
1st.
Currently has it, but there's no.
But
you
April
could
is.
grass to mow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Yeah.
Unless we get a ton of grass and he shows up April 30th,
Right.
he's probably not gonna come mow.
Right.
we're not gonna-
Grass in my yard grows
grass
about a
to
foot a week in May.
Okay.
So I think we have an opportunity to see how it goes. You know. Ultimately, there, you know, let's see how it goes. There could be a scenario where. It becomes restrictive enough around mowing that someone's not willing to do it for free anymore. Right? And then we have to think about what and how much the town might be willing to invest in this particular piece of the management plan. Obviously, if we paid someone to mow it, we could pick the day. Right? It's just a question of resources. So I think we can find something that'll work.
Okay.
Yeah, let's not assume the worst case.
Yeah.
Sorry, I always tell people planners are in the business,
Yes.
like the worst case scenario. It's just like, we do this, what's the worst thing? But yeah,
I have a question about this that's slightly off topic, but there are trails on the trail map that are in that field that are utilized in our race course. Typically, this has worked out in the past that we've been able to stay through the first two races on the north side. And then we're on the south side, the mowing's been done, the course is put back up, but if this is delayed until July 15th, that'll significantly impact our race course and how that's mowed and when you can use it. So in favor of supporting the Bobo links, definitely want to prioritize that, but want to make sure that we are planning for the race series appropriately and using the trails that we can.
You know, which trails do you use for the race?
He builds a new course every year.
It's
Typically it goes
around.
around the bowl.
Yeah, it's just the
Yeah,
roads.
okay.
So, yeah.
I got one point about all of that. The traditional trails that you have, that goes around, I mean, it kind of cuts through on the northern end, it cuts across on the northern end.
Mhm.
And then there's a perimeter trail.
Yep.
That's fine, that
Okay.
doesn't interrupt. What interrupts them is you used to have, up until a few years ago, a trail that cut across the highest part on that thing, on that field.
Yeah, it hasn't been cut since
And
I
that-
think it became town land and all this.
Yeah, it
and all
hasn't
this
been cut for at least the last 2 years.
Yeah, so definitely we do not want to cut that.
Yeah, and that's right, that we do not, I don't want to see it cutting that.
Yeah,
And that's because the birds prefer the high point
Yeah.
for their
the birds-
display, and it.
Yeah, they prefer the higher point. They apparently seem to feel safer at the higher point
sure.
of a field, so.
So those trails could be mowed for maintenance, of trail maintenance, but not beyond what the lines that you just mentioned. Is that the right understanding?
There's trails that used to cut through the middle of that field. We never want to mow them
Yeah.
ever. Like, we just don't
Yeah.
use them anymore. We retired them.
Yeah.
But in
I
June
mean,
and July,
but the
they can mow the
perimeter-
perimeter one.
But the perimeter ones will keep
Yeah.
maintained regardless all the time.
Yeah,
And in
That's right.
May, Andy can mow the trails that we always maintain.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
So
just
you're
not-
saying that that's outside the.
Yeah,
where
that's,
the-
I
where
mean,
the
he
primary
does- the farmer doesn't mow that for hay.
Right.
You guys mow that to maintain the trails, that's fine.
Yeah,
Thank you, that makes sense.
and in which case we would prefer from a mowing point of view, like that's the drier side, the north side's drier and a lot of the early races are there. So it'd be, but we prefer the farmer not to be interfering with the early season races, so delayed mowing would be better for the races.
Yeah, yeah. And if these trails were not available, we could build the course around it. I just wanna plan ahead.
Okay.
I think that's an interesting point. If delaying mowing is also beneficial for the, programming of the outdoor family center, it's an additional point of conversation.
Yeah,
I think so.
Okay, that's good to know. All right, any other questions on this? I think as Matt pointed out, we have a clear next step, which is simply to speak with Harold DeGraff and find out what his thoughts are, and that'll kind of lead us to where we need to go next. And I think, Kim, as you mentioned, the invasives issue is something to be aware of, and I think we can get out there this year and kind of assess that. We'll be speaking to Bob Hyams at the next session about putting together a comprehensive invasive management plan for Catamount. And certainly I think, as Jean pointed out, even if we were to change this, and we noticed something in terms of parsnip starting to take off, you could revert to that other strategy. Okay, so moving right along, we'll probably, I put some other business on here and some future agenda items. Part of that was me simply trying to identify as many things as I could from past minutes that seemed relevant, and if we don't get to talking about all of them, that's totally fine. But I did want to take a little bit to mention the invasive management plan point. So I spoke with Bob just this week, and last week, Bob is currently recovering from ankle surgery, but is optimistic that he'll be back on his feet by late May, early June, which is about the time when he'd want to get out there to Catamount to continue getting a look on in terms of the lay of the land and putting together that work. Bob was out at the site last year, was in conversation with Ethan Tapper when this was all first proposed, has worked at Catamount before. And we even have an unsigned potential contract that was drawn up by Andrew before me, sitting in our file. So it seems like, Bob was aware of this project and excited to get involved. So I thought maybe what we could do today is just take a few minutes to identify if there are any questions that you have for Bob going into this process of trying to put together a comprehensive plan. And I could send those questions to Bob in advance of his visit. And that'll help make the conversation a little more efficient.
I don't have a question, but I guess maybe I do. I feel like we've had money set aside for professional invasive removal experts. And we've also had volunteers come in, so I think it would be great to be able to within the plan, know which way we should go and what would be easier to have volunteers come in and help with, because volunteers are great. And what would be better to have the experts do, because we have some money to pay the experts.
That's a great point. And I think on that, not only volunteers versus experts, but, you know, which species and at what density of infestation can volunteers with just hand tools actually make a difference versus needing someone to come in with chemicals.
We did have a volunteer, we had Chapin come in a few months ago online to express his interest in.
Willingness to help us,
Yes,
yeah.
Yep.
Right?
He said he was certified or whatever, trained in some chemical application.
He's great, and we have several other Conservation Commission members who also have been certified in a number of chemical applications, and I think we have a lot of know-how in town of people who are really passionate about this. Chapin is like volunteer extraordinaire, but there are some other folks that I think also we could tap other people in town for volunteerism that have, yeah.
That does sound important. One of the questions, how do we integrate those two, right? Yeah,
Well, Terry's been quite involved in it.
right, yeah, Terry, Maren, yeah.
Does anybody have is anybody taking lead of planning an invasive day? Terry did that in the past. Like, we should pick a date and like say, let's do an invasive day and stick it on the calendar and work towards it.
I think Drew raised his hand last time I was gonna.
Oh,
Yeah.
did you do that
Yeah,
last time?
Yeah, last time, and
Mentioned
I'm
it.
happy to, yeah, but I was, because I've always thought that most of that work gets done in the fall, when the plants are pulling their poison back into their system, but, so
Oh,
that's what I was assuming. Would be
Ideally,
something in the
that's
fall.
when it should be done, yeah.
okay.
Doesn't have to be, but ideally it's in the
Well,
fall.
doesn't it kind of vary from species to species and when they're flowering?
Yeah, I think
seeding
we're,
and-
yeah.
Right, because
Yeah.
Terry was out
Okay.
there in early July, I thought, it was for poison parsnip control.
Sure.
That's right, because you want to get that before it goes to seed.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking buckthorn and honeysuckle.
Right.
The one you
Well, we
saw.
have like 3 different days for the 3 different
Yeah.
invasives,
Whoa.
or 5 different days, because we have a whole day.
Name it based off the
Sounds jealous.
species. we're
Yeah.
gonna- Honeysuckle.
I think through this also, there are people who have planned these before, so, you know, we probably get on the agenda to get, you know, meet with those folks and help us plan.
Right.
Something.
Now, at the family center, are there places that you've noticed, you know, invasive plant species interfering with any of your trail work or any of your programs or?
The spots we avoid. So I guess that's a definition of interference, yes.
Yeah,
Like poison parsnip.
Yeah.
Except for, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
And I think Ethan pointed out that a lot of the places that were recently logged are now prime zones for the
Mhm.
invasives to come in.
Yes,
We prepped it for them.
Yeah. right.
So now we want to discourage them however we can. How do we do that? Bob, help us.
And I guess I'm wondering if there's any overlap that we need to be concerned about with the UVM research that's going on, and pesticide use, things like that. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a general sense I have that we just need to know what all of the invasive removal or management activities are, both geographically, species wise, and also what can we point volunteers at versus what do we want to pay somebody for? And we'll work on sorting all of that out, and it's gonna help us move more quickly when we do want to create those volunteer opportunities especially. So more to come on that, but definitely something that's on our list that we've already talked about.
Yeah.
And you've probably got that same issue with all the town trails too.
We do, it's a broader issue, and also just so folks know, the whole sort of management of volunteer help for the town. Making sure that we're organized around knowing what the scope is of the volunteer activities that are happening. The preparation of waivers for those need to be event specific, and they need to be inclusive of all of the precautions and limitations and things like that. So working with the manager's office on getting that ramped up so it's easier for us to set those things up. We want to be able to bring volunteers in. It's terrific community building. It gets a lot of work done. but there's a couple of liability things we have to watch and a couple Fair Labor Standards Acts things we have to watch, like having volunteers do something that you would otherwise pay somebody to do. You have to kind of justify that a little bit, and we're working on it. And we're working on creating the capacity to do it.
Thank you.
So, thank you, David.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's pretty clear. That gives me some talking points I can bring back to Bob. So he can kind of think about that in advance. Yeah, I think that's great. Volunteers versus experts, the forestry versus the trails versus the fields, the different species, time of year, use of chemicals versus, when people can simply use hand tools. Yeah, that's great.
I think the question of the invasives growing up in the research site is maybe something for the UVM guy, but they were kind of flippant about it last time. It's like, yeah, they'll come back. It's like, well, we really don't want the invasives to come back. So,
Right.
so that might be a subset for UVM instead of and Bob, but.
Okay, yeah. Great. Okay, so I think that's fine for the invasive management plan, and I'm just, since we're running down our time, maybe a couple of these items I can just provide quick updates on. And then, most of these I'm sure we can push to a future agenda. So maybe I'll just run through a couple of updates that I know about my end, and we can use whatever time is left over for any questions or comments. First of all, Carl, thank you so much for joining us today. You're welcome to stay for the last 12 minutes if you like. But you're welcome to leave.
You're welcome to come every week, every month if you want.
So
Stick it out for tonight.
Okay.
All right, so brush hogging, that was on, that was a topic that came up. I noticed in our past minutes, and the action item there is to schedule a joint visit to get out to the sites that have been mapped as needing brush hogging to kind of determine whether you want to move forward with that and what that would look like. So I can probably set up a poll or something to help schedule that with folks. Obviously, we wouldn't need 100% attendance, but
And I think the key is the outdoor family center staff and you. I mean, if we don't get a committee member, I think
Yeah, I'm
It'll be
not
okay.
I'm not a brush hogging expert.
just like yeah.
Don't say yourself sure.
Although maybe a committee member would represent, I mean, unless you are,
yeah, I can certainly, I would go.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can follow up on that. The bird boxes, Matt determined that archaeology review would not be needed to replace the posts. The existing posts.
Yes.
Those materials were purchased. And Terry Marin, I believe, is the person who will be installing them.
Yeah,
Is
she
that
was thinking she was gonna get out early April, but then she went away and traveled, and the way we left was she was gonna let me know, and I'll make sure she lets you folks know too when she's thinking about getting out to do that.
We'll be back on Saturday.
Be back on Saturday. So the materials are piled beside the garage, assuming no one's come and stolen the bundle of conduit that I bought at Home Depot.
I'll skip over this. These are just two items that I'd seen in recent minutes that could be discussion topics for future, just understanding kind of what's been allocated and spent. Putting together group work plan. Brandon Benedict, I was able to connect with. Brandon will be at the spring launch event on May 11th, if anyone would like to meet him then. But Brandon will also be joining us, I think, virtually for our June 12th meeting to talk about the ongoing forestry work there and how Brandon will be stepping in to take over that role of county forester with regards to the management plan that was put together by Ethan. So that can be an item for next time, is thinking about if there's any questions or any comments that you'd like me to communicate to Brandon in advance. I also connected with Professor Tony D'Amato, who enjoyed the opportunity to come meet with all of you back in January. And I talked to Tony about this idea that was in one of the minutes about, having a quarterly visit or quarterly update. And Tony felt that a biannual or even annual update might be sufficient, and proposed, kind of a fall season update, maybe September, October, where you'd be able to provide an update of kind of what happened in that particular field season. with regards to the research and the work that went on in terms of the UVM research component of that.
I agree with
I
that.
think twice a year is plenty.
Yeah,
Okay.
and yeah, twice a year, once a year. Trees don't grow that fast.
Right.
And then the other item that I identified as sort of a long-term project to work on, that certainly I can do a bunch of work on to help move that forward, is this idea of putting together a governance document of some kind that, you know, summarizes all the many pages that have been written regarding Catamount Community Forest in much fewer pages, providing clarity on some of the things that you've discussed recently, such as summarizing legal constraints for the property all in one document, formalizing some elements of the partnership between the town, represented by this committee and the Outdoor Family Center, clarifying that events and sort of volunteer protocols and stuff like that. So that can be a topic for future discussion. But with that, yeah, are there any questions on any of these items? Anything anyone wants to talk about in the last few minutes of the meeting tonight?
I would just share that, from my perspective as the event coordinator, there wasn't really an event process when I started at Catamount, and I've spent the past 4 years building that based off of these foundational documents and these committee meetings. And I feel like we got to a point where it was done. And now we're kind of reopening that conversation. So my hope is that you will take some time to look at what we've already built, and any changes can maybe use thresholds that have already been established, to just ease that transition as we shift to whatever that answer is.
Thank you. Matt did mention that there's a fantastic spreadsheet that I have to track down that you made somewhere on your website.
The flow chart.
Flow chart. Oh, yeah. So I do know that I have homework to do there, but it also sounds like maybe it'd be beneficial for us to connect on that topic. And I think I've got plenty to learn on that.
Me too.
Great. Are there any conversation points that anyone would like to propose as sort of a priority topic for next time, something to go in a little bit deeper? Bob will be attending either remotely or in person, so that'll certainly be a take up a chunk of time. But is there anything else that is popping out at anyone as something you'd like to, really prioritize?
I felt like the thing that we had a little momentum on in the last few meetings was this governance document. So if there's something draft for the committee to chew on ahead of time and then spend a little bit of time together discussing, helping shape it, that might be a productive use of time. Unless we want to have like a separate governance working committee. That'd be another approach. That's just an idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I don't know if a draft is something that, just because I'm still doing a lot of onboarding, soaking things up. I don't know if I get to point a draft, but perhaps an outline, kind of starting to lay out what it might look like and collecting things together.
Yeah, it would be good, just maybe an outline is a better word for it, because I don't want us to spend too much time like duplicating stuff we already have. And really, the rubbing point seems to be who's making what decisions and how, that seems to be where we keep bumping into it.
That would be a good discussion for next time, and just get those crystallized for you.
And Kim is really good at this, if you need to connect with her.
Well, I was just gonna say, I don't know if it might not have been forwarded, but I guess last month I sent a bunch of like examples and documents, and then I think Hans asked me for a paper and I wasn't sure which one, so I sent all of them, and it may have been a deluge. Sorry. I feel like at one point I was like, I apologize for being an academic, but I'm an academic. So if it's helpful, I can resend those documents, but I think Matt also could forward them, maybe.
Yeah, that sounds good. Kim, I know you're on the sabbatical. Do you have time and availability? Because it sounds like I could also benefit with meeting with you if you have that.
Sort of. So here's the like weird thing is I got this, and I got this Fulbright at the same time that I used to be faculty at SUNY Plattsburgh. I got this Fulbright at the same time that I got the job at UVM, and so I was not eligible for sabbatical. So I'm on Fulbright, but I'm actually doing 2 jobs at once. So kind of maybe like if you send me times, I'll see if I can make something work. But I'll be totally happy to meet when I'm back at the end of June. And
Yeah, that
I
sounds.
have like
reasonable.
some cool examples of community forestry arrangements that are from BC now that I think are like really neat and special and different. So that's cool
Yeah, I mean,
too.
we could just kind of push this out a little bit because I think it would benefit from having Kim's eyes on it, so.
Yeah. That sounds reasonable. You
I do
should,
agree also that we're finally getting a
Yeah,
little
we're getting-
momentum, so, yeah.
I don't think I can't work on it. I don't
Yeah.
know. Ben, I've told Ben that like his new job is when people ask me for new projects now, I have to say no.
that's completely fair. Yeah, you should prioritize this opportunity. And at the same time, Matt can probably get me the documents, but if I have any questions, maybe I'll send an email.
Yeah. Don't not ask me. I should say like yes, probably. It's just a little more limited than typical.
Right?
I think I'm the co-chair person, so when we're done, I can make a motion to adjourn. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
All
Aye.
You're out of here.
Bye.
All right, well done. Thanks, Ken.
right, thank you.
6:50.
Bye.
Nice, nice.
Good night, everyone.
Should always have a 6:45 hard stop. And then we get
That would
done.
be number 7. We used to do 5:30 to 6:30, and we never ended until 7.
An hour is.
Yeah.
It's tough
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
deal